so that we save time. It's scheduled to last for an hour, so let's make the best use of the 1 hour. The first half is the main reason why we are having the briefing. We have an announcement to make regarding the appointment of a special prosecutor under the post-TRRC implementation program. Of course, when we take questions for that part, when that is completed, these kind of opportunities don't come by often. So we could then have a second segment where the ministry is open to general questions that you want to ask. Are we together on that? So the first half, the questions will be limited to this press statement that I'll be reading to you and issues connected to that. Then when we finish that, then we will open for a second segment, which you will be at liberty as media practitioners to ask questions directly relating to any issue regarding the mandate of the Ministry of Justice. I have all my directors and officials here. If I cannot handle any question, they will be able to support me, give you an answer. We're together on that. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, good afternoon. You are welcome to today's briefing on the appointment of the special prosecutor for the Gambia. Before I delve into the profile of the special prosecutor and the procedure taken on his appointment, I would like to commence this statement with a reminder of our efforts on the implementation of the TRRC's recommendation around prosecution. In November 2021, the TRRC recommended that 69 persons be prosecuted by the government of the Gambia for crimes committed on our soil between 1994 and January 2017, including the former President Jammeh. During its public hearings, 393 witnesses appeared before the TRRC, the majority being direct victims and family members of victims who narrated stories of torture, murder, enforced disappearances, rape, sexual violence, and other forms of cruel and degrading treatment. Government of the Gambia accepted in its white paper on the TRRC report all of the TRRC recommendations on prosecution through a special accountability mechanism. The government of the Gambia, in partnership with ECOWAS, the Gambia Bar Association, the national and international criminal justice experts, worked collaboratively on the design of the special accountability mechanism of the Gambia between 2019 and 2024. Careful thoughts have been placed in the design of the special accountability mechanism, and as a result, the special accountability mechanism is a novel initiative for global criminal justice. For the first time ever, a country is being seen to implement comprehensive post-conflict criminal justice framework that activates at the same time both domestic and international pathways for justice and accountability, including for atrocity crimes. In April 2024, the National Assembly passed the Special Accountability Act and a unique piece of legislation for institutional justice, for transitional justice. This act, the SAM Act as we call it, is not law that establishes any institution, but rather a declaration by the people of the Gambia. The Special Accountability Act recalls the dark history of the Gambia and lays out a set of principles to guide the entire post-TRRC justice and accountability phase that we are now in. The Act introduces three components of our special accountability mechanism and reaffirms a national conviction that without justice, there can be no national reconciliation, sustainable peace, or development. The three components of the special accountability mechanism are the Special Prosecutor's Office, the Special Criminal Division of the High Court, and the Special Tribunal of the Gambia. Members of the press, today's briefing will focus on the Special Prosecutor's Office. I am honored to announce, on behalf of the Government of the Gambia, that Mr. Martin Hackett, a British national, has been appointed as the Special Prosecutor for the Gambia to head the investigations and prosecutions of the TRRC cases. Mr. Hackett is a British barrister with more than 30 years of experience in criminal and international law. A graduate of Aberystwyth University, where he obtained his LLB honors, he was called to the bar in 1995 and has built a career focused on complex prosecutions involving war crimes, terrorism, serious organized crime, and other grave offenses. Internationally, Mr. Hackett has held senior prosecutorial and advisory roles in a number of demanding legal environments. At the United Nations Special Tribunal for Lebanon in Hague, he served as a senior trial counsel, leading the investigation and prosecution of crimes of international terrorism and overseeing complex evidential and strategic case development. His work included the presentation of technical, forensic, and digital evidence relating to covert networks, surveillance, and communications data. He also served as head of the War Crimes Division in the Special Prosecution Office in Kosovo, where he led investigations and prosecutions concerning war crimes and crimes against humanity, including cases involving mass murder, torture, arbitrary detention, enforced disappearances, persecution, and conflict-related sexual violence. In that capacity, he appeared as lead prosecution counsel in politically sensitive proceedings and worked closely with national and international counterparts on case strategy, witness protection, and institutional development. In Ukraine, Mr. Hackett has advised the Office of the Prosecutor General and other authorities on cases arising from current conflict, including war crimes, genocide, and conflict-related sexual violence. That work has included strategic advice on investigations, prosecutions approaches, legislative reforms, and victim protection in accordance with international standards. He has also undertaken counterterrorism work in Uganda, Tajikistan, the Maldives, Iraq, Kurdistan, and supporting prosecutors, judges, investigators, and forensic specialists on case preparation, human rights standards, and fair trial safeguards in terrorism prosecutions. Mr. Hackett is a recognized specialist in conflict-related sexual violence and sexual and gender-based violence, offering counsel on victim protection, legislative reform, and he regularly addresses international law conferences and mentors law students. In the United Kingdom, he is a senior Category 4 Crown Prosecution Service prosecutor, specializing in rape and serious sexual offenses and counterterrorism, reflecting extensive experience in the prosecution of serious sexual offenses and terrorism cases. His appointment brings to the role extensive experience of prosecution leadership, courtroom advocacy, and work on war crimes and terrorism in complex domestic and international settings. Members of the press, the selection of the Special Prosecutor was conducted in accordance with Section 23 of the Special Prosecutors Act 2024. An independent selection panel was constituted by myself as Minister of Justice to spearhead the selection of the senior management team of the office, namely the Special Prosecutor, the Deputy Special Prosecutor, the Head of Investigations, and Chairperson of the Fund Management Committee. The panel comprises of 6 members, a member appointed by the government, a member appointed by ECOWAS, a member appointed by the Gambia Bar Association, a representative of the Public Service Commission, and 2 high-level experts in international criminal law appointed jointly or separately by government and ECOWAS. In 2024, the independent selection panel developed and adopted its terms of reference, a selection procedure, job description, and vacancy notices for Special Prosecutor, the Deputy Special Prosecutor, and the Head of the Investigation Division positions. These call for applications were published on the 3rd of May 2025 with a closing date of 30th June 2025. Publications were made through the Ministry of Justice's website and social media handles and the Gambia Bar Association. To reach an international audience, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs dispatched vacancy notices to our permanent missions in our multilateral embassies like New York, Brussels, Addis Ababa, and Geneva for dissemination to member states. At the end of the 6-week vacancy period, 13 persons applied for special prosecutor, and 4 applicants were subsequently shortlisted, interviewed by the independent selection panel. The panel also undertook extensive background checks of the 4 shortlisted candidates and engaged their references. In December 2025, the independent selection panel submitted its recommendation on appointment of special prosecutor to the government, and the Ministry of Justice has since then drafted terms and conditions of service for the special prosecutor and facilitated the appointment of Mr. Martin Hackett by His Excellency President Adama Barrow in line with Section 5 of the Act. Mr. Martin Hackett is expected to be in the Gambia before the end of this month. He is appointed for a term of 4 years, commencing April 2026, and this may be renewed for an additional period as agreed by the parties and in accordance with the provisions of the Special Prosecutors Act 2024. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, let me provide you with an outline of powers, duties, and responsibilities of the Special Prosecutor as per the SPO Act. The Special Prosecutor shall act as autonomous and shall not be subject to the direction or control of any other person or authority in the exercise of his or her powers or carrying out his or her functions, except to the extent provided in the SPO Act of 2024. The Special Prosecutor shall have the power to determine which cases to prosecute before the Special Tribunal and which ones before the Special Criminal Division of the High Court, and shall conduct investigations and prosecutions in accordance with Section 16 and 17 of the SPO Act 2024. The Special Prosecutor shall, in addition to all powers conferred on him under the Special Prosecutor's Office Act of 2024, perform the following functions: investigate cases of serious human rights violations, including international and domestic crimes that have occurred between July 1994 and January 2017, using any method or technique permitted by applicable law. 2, to initiate and conduct prosecutions for offenses which were recommended by the TRRC and accepted by the government for prosecution, and which come to the attention of the Special Prosecutor during his investigations of the TRRC findings. 3, provide regular updates and reports to the public and relevant authorities on investigations, insofar as possible, and prosecutions initiated and other activities. Establish effective and appropriate programs for the protection and support of victims and witnesses for protecting the integrity of the evidence and its internal procedures. Develop guidelines for the sensitive handling of witness testimony and other evidence involving vulnerable persons in order to minimize the risk of their further traumatization. Developed rules, criteria, guidelines for performance of any functions or exercise of any power conferred by the SPO Act 2024. Review, organize, and reorganize as appropriate the functioning of the SPO to optimize its operations with a view to completing its mandate timeously and with efficacy. Design public outreach and communication strategies to keep the public and the media informed about the Special Prosecutor's mandate, function, and activities in order to build public trust and confidence in the process. Regarding his reporting obligations, the Special Prosecutor shall submit annual reports to the President, to the National Assembly, to ECOWAS, the Attorney General, and any other authority designated by the Oversight Committee established under Section 37 of the SPO Act, detailing the activities, progress, and challenges faced, and the recommendation to address the challenges where appropriate, insofar as possible in view of the confidentiality of investigations and the presumption of innocence. This is the end of the statement. I thank you all for your kind attention at this stage, and I would want to welcome questions with respect to this subject. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? Do we have any questions? Ladies and gentlemen, please put up your hand. We'll bring a mic to you. If you could please introduce yourself, name and media house, and then ask your question. We'll take 3 questions, allow the Honorable Minister to respond, and then take 3 more. We'll start with you, sir, and then you second.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Modusar. New Global Media. My question is, you said that 69% were due to be prosecuted. Those people, the ministry notified them that they are to be prosecuted, and secondly, most of those people are living abroad, including the former president. So what mechanism the ministry has in place to extradite those people? Thank you.
No, we did not notify anybody. The notice is out there. The recommendations were published in the Gazette from the TRRC. When this was accepted in the white paper, it was gazetted. This is sufficient notice. So everybody that was recommended to be prosecuted, and that recommendation having been accepted by government, is assumed to already be on notice that you have been recommended for prosecution. So we do not have to necessarily inform them formally that they may probably be prosecuted. I do not think most of them are out of the country. I don't know how accurate that statement is, but yes, some of them may be out of the country, including the former president. Extradition will be explored when we get to that level. Appropriate bilateral arrangements are in place for those that are outside of the jurisdiction and will require to come to answer to the justice. Those arrangements will be made.
Good afternoon. My name is Brahma Jallo. I work for DRPS. Is there any time frame set out for the prosecution? In other words, how long will it take to complete the prosecution entirely so that the victims can anticipate justice at the end of the day? Because you said the prosecutor will be submitting annual reports to government in regards to updates. But how soon or when exactly can victims expect conclusions as to the prosecution that is outlined?
Like I invited you to announce that the prosecutor has been appointed and as effective April. When the prosecutor arrives in Banjul and assumes his duties, I believe he will be holding regular press briefings. Maybe at that stage, after he evaluated his work, he will be the competent authority to be able to tell you how long it will take him to start filing charges or doing. But his initial contract is for a 4-year term. Depending on what has been accomplished, it could be extended. But he's appointed for a 4-year time. So as soon as he arrives, he takes over all the materials we have received from the Truth Commission, from the TRRC. It is his job now to review those materials, the evidence, and decide on whether they are adequate or they are not adequate, whether there are need for further investigation to close the evidential gaps, who to charge, who to be used as a witness. These are entirely prosecutorial decisions that we entrust to him. So he will be the competent authority to decide that. And unless he gets to work, it's really difficult to attach timeline to his work. So as a professional, when he comes and when he faces the media, he should be able to answer a lot of your curious questions at that stage.
Okay. My name is Landin Cisse. I work with the Point newspaper. The former president, Yahya Jammeh, is very key to this special prosecutor's office. And then he's one of the people the TRRC recommended that they should be prosecuted. Is Yahya Jammeh going to be extradited to come to the Gambia and be prosecuted, or he is going to be prosecuted in absentia? That's my question. Thank you.
From the policy point of view, the answer is Yahya Jammeh has been recommended to be prosecuted, and government have accepted, and government is committed to ensuring that is implemented. How and where he will be prosecuted, I would again defer that to the prosecutor, because the hybrid court that we have set up through a treaty agreement with ECOWAS is capable of either sitting in Banjul or changing its location to an appropriate place, still to do its job. So until when that tribunal is in place, there are a lot of variables that will determine whether that kind of hearing will be held in Gambia or will be held outside of the Gambia. So we are not at a point when we can definitely determine where the forum is going to be.
Good afternoon. My name is Osman Jata. I work for QTV. How will the victims and the public be kept informed throughout the process, and what measures are in place to ensure transparency and avoid delays or political interference?
For the prosecution? Okay, if you are following my statement, the obligation to put in place a communication strategy so that he regularly interfaces with the press and the public, and then he will be submitting annual reports to the National Assembly and to the President. So the process is going to be very transparent.
Thank you. My name is Tabora Bojang, Standard Newspaper. You've said 13 people applied for this.
Yes.
And 4 were sublisted. So I would like to ask, out of the 13 people who applied, how many of them are Gambians? And also, of the 4 that you sublisted, how many of those 4 are Gambians? And is Mr. Martin the most qualified amongst all of those 4 people, if there are any Gambians, knowing that he only holds LLB?
Thank you very much. I really did not influence the recruitment. If you hear me, I established an independent, eminent members of the panel. Some of the members of the panel one of them is Fatou Bensouda, former Gambian ICC prosecutor. For those that you may be familiar with, Surahata Jane, the doyen of the Gambian bar until recently when he retired from active private practice. And some other experts, international experts appointed jointly with ECOWAS. So it's a very strong, highly professional, skilled individuals whose assignment only is to recruit based on merit, not nationality. Of course, we would have loved to have a Gambian. To answer you straight, I know there was only 1 Gambian applicant among the 13. I don't know how far he made it to be honest. I don't know whether he made it to the short list of 4 or did not. But I know my briefing includes that there was only 1 Gambian applicant. But Martin, out of the 13, emerged the 2nd best. The 4th best did not take the offer because of some family commitment, so it dropped to the 2nd. And if you are familiar with recruitment procedures, that's perfectly normal. So the one that emerged first is not also Gambian. We offered, but he wasn't available to take up the assignment due to some other issues that came up after the recruitment process. So Marcin was gracious to accept the offer to come and take up the assignment.
Do you have any more questions? Yes. Thank you, sir. Name and media.
Assalamu alaikum. maa ngi tudd Modou Lamine Diouf maa ngi liggéeyal Hilltop FM radio soo suma laaj bi dinaa ko bëgg a laaj si olof pour ñi nga xamante ne jànguñ te doomi réew mi lañ te ñu ngi dégloo. Honorable Minister, wax nga ci lu jëm ci fal bi nga xamante ne am na kuñ fal mooy special prosecutor bi pour lu aju ci tooñ yi fi amoon si jamono nguuri Jammeh. Pour ñu déglu te dégguñ angale bëggoon naa rek nga tënkal ñu process yi palin gi waaye tamit li nga xamante ne moom la ko réew mi sas. jërëjëf.
jërëjëf mooy Martin la tudd Martin Hackett doomi Angleterre la nuñ ko tànnee mooy dama sos mbootaay bi ñoo wax Independent Selection Panel ñi nga xam ne ay doomi Gambia ñu ngi fa but am na ñoo xam ne bokk nañ si panel boobu ñi nga xam ne duñ Gambian waaye dañu am xam-xam torop te xarañ si liggéey international law and prosecution. ñooñu juróom-benn lañ si ay ndaw ñi nga xam ne ñooñu lañ tànn ñu santaleen pour ñu utal ñu koo xam ne mat na li ñoo ut si moom pour mu mun a ñëw defal ñu liggéey bii nii soo yebaane nañ buñ paree buñ defaree seen terms of reference yi dinaa si boole angale tuuti na because wolof bi baaxut so much that I cannot be 100% wolof waaye buñ defaree seen jumtuwaay yi nga xam ne yooyu lañ soxla yëpp den ñu def yebaane bi àdduna bi yëpp lañ ko yebaane képp a koo xam ne gis nga ko nga foog ne mun nga ko mbit nga criteria bi pour nga apply so def nañ process bu yooyu yëpp ñu def seen interview yi ñu def lu ñu war a def yëpp yàlla def ki njëkkoon a tànna moom demoon na ba ñu commencé di waxtaan ak moom contrat am bi waaye mu am lu xew li nga xam ne kenn tuuti ko woon soo mbiri njobootam la soo mënut a travel pour mu ñëw def liggéey bi so ñu dem si kii toppa moo nekk moom doomu Angleterre la yàlla def moom nangu na waxtaan nañoo moom d'accord nañ sign nañ contrat yi yëpp dooree ko weer bii so ñu ngi koo séntu balaa weer bi di dee Martin dina agsi si réew mi Martin mooy yore mbiri prosecution di gëstu TRRC mi fi amoon bu TRRC jeexoon juróom benn fukki nit ak juróom ñeneen lañ TRRC recommendé ñooñu lañu war a ñooñu lañ tuumal ne dañ def ay tafaar te dañ leen war a aate si kanami aatekaay buñ defee yooyu nguur gi nangu woon nañ recommendation yooyu buñ jotee si TRRC bi waaye depuis booba ba léegi si tànka yooyu ak jéego yooyu lañ nekk ba tey ñu agsi fuñ agsi tey nii so Martin bu ñëwee mooy matériel yooyu yi nga xam ne yooyu lañ jëlee TRRC yëpp depuis bu TRRC pare ñu ngi leen teg kenn laalul leen Martin bu ñëwee matériel yooyu la moo jël mu gëstu kenn ku nekk liñ la tuumal yan evidence moo am against you mu study ko mu decide ndax evidence bi doy na mu decide pour prosecute la waaye ndax dina prosecute ñëpp ndax ñeenay daf leen a use as witnesses loolu yëpp prosecutorial decision la boo xam ne moom lañ ko bàyyee moo tax si liggéeyam bi waxoon naa si suma kàddu ne kenn du ko bundu xatal si liggéeyam ndax yoon daf ko may te loi lañ am mooy Special Prosecutors Act bi nga xam ne suñu néegi député yi ñoo ko paas loi boobu moo firi moom lan mooy dooleem ak naka la moo doxalee office am bi ak ndax nit mun na koo preso ndax nit munu koo preso dafa am autonomie décision am yi yëpp décision am la mu nekk kenn munu koo wax lan ngay def lan nga du def so pour gis rek askan bi ñu am confidence si process bi so moo tax dañ ko appoint ñu bàyyi ko mu def liggéeyam moom lu mu dogal rek ne moom noonu la bugg a doxalee rek dafa mel noonu rek noonu la moo demee waaye pour tënk rek ndaw la mi nga xam ne appoint nañ ko nguur bi appoint nañ ko dina agsi si réew mi balaa weer mi di dee liggéeyam li mu doon mooy moom TRRC ñim recommandé noonu ne dañ leen war a aate si liggéey boobu la moo ñëw sóobu.
Hello.
Yes.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm Mustafa.
Mustafa Dabo. I have a couple of questions. Maybe I can read them all or just one at a time?
Related to this subject?
Yes.
You were here when I said the rules?
Yes.
All right, then let's go.
No, relating to this, of course.
Yes, so when we move to the other side, then we will take other questions. Yes,
Yeah,
on this
yeah.
side, yes, we'll take any question.
No, relating to this. Definitely.
Okay, all right.
So, the first one is the,
Somebody can hold the mic for you. Good.
Yeah, so the first one is the funding issue. Have you mobilized any funding for the different stages? Let's say, for example, of course, there will be investigations, there will be prosecutions, there will be a lot of things. And how much inadequate is this to sufficiently take us through this process at different stages? And maybe you can tell us what the gaps are and what you need to raise, and whether what you are also expecting, what you have and what you don't have. And the second issue is the issue of partners. I mean, we know, for example, there are some of the things you may need that may not necessarily be money. So, for example, you may need a forensic expert, and US may not give you money, but they may give you a forensic expert. Ghana may not give you money, but they may give you a judge or a lawyer, something like we do have technical assistance in a various judicial sector. Do you have any kind of arrangements of this nature and at different levels, and such as and maybe even also in the form of institutional support, because we know, for example, in forensics, you only have one forensic person at the police. Maybe you answer these two questions then you can.
Funding, aware of the funding challenges, and we're working. We know what we need at this stage, not definitively, but we have an approximate budget. We have a budget of about $2.5 million US to maintain the Office of the Special Prosecutor annually. Government has committed some funds, not enough, but you will be pleased to learn that in this very hall this morning at 10 a.m., I have a meeting with all the ambassadors that are accredited to this country, our development partners. We have had a meeting and they are fully briefed, and we are looking at getting the support. I'm traveling to the UN headquarters in New York next week for a meeting with the Peace Building Fund, who are also very supportive. Currently, they've allocated some resources and they are committed to allocating some a little bit more, which could serve as a catalyst funding to raise other funds. But in my, well, you have UNDP seated among us here, who are our key partner in this as well. UNDP, with support in collaboration with EU, are building the office for the special prosecutor. So that process is underway, which is technical in nature. They are not giving us the money, but they are going to build the head office. So we are in close contact with our partners, and the issue of forensic that you discussed was very prominent in my briefing with them this morning. I have indicated very clearly that as a country we want to build a forensic capability out of this process. So in as much as we can, some countries can assist in training our experts in, for example, operating in a forensic lab. We need the lab itself in the Gambia, because if we train our people in forensic knowledge, if we don't have the forensic institutional capacity, we will still have to send our forensics to abroad for testing. And then I think all our traditional partners were in the room, so I don't need to mention names, and they've taken note of this, and there is work on the way in this direction. I mean, if we have to send our samples, for example, you are aware, exhumations have happened since the time of TRRC. Human remains are still in the hospital. We still could not tell whose remain is who, because we do not have a domestic forensic capacity to do that identification. And we have so many suspected burial sites that we are going to exhume. And if those exhumations happen also, we need a forensic capability to be able to do the identification. But beyond the TRRC, even for the normal regular criminal justice system, we need forensic capabilities. We had in the past year a simple murder case where we have to send the blood samples all the way to Ghana to have it examined and be sent back. And then if you want to present that evidence in court, that laboratory technician in Ghana who performed the test will have to come here. You put him in a hotel, take him to court, it's all cost. So really we are very committed at the end of this process to develop a domestic forensic capacity, both institutional and human capacity. We hope we will get there. That could be some of the legacies of this process. So yes, so our invitation for partnership and support is both financial, technical, and institutional. And the response is positive. We are very optimistic, especially if the prosecutor is in country and they see him at work. Hopefully that will even be a big incentive for those who want to support. The prosecutor, specifically on the budget, the $2.5 million annual budget is an estimation that we developed with ECOWAS, the Joint Technical Committee. But the law requires the prosecutor himself, upon assuming office, to come up with his own budget. So he will develop the budget requirement that he thinks is what he needs for him to do his job. And based on that realistic budget, then we will still continue the fundraising in that direction. So yes, we have some seed money from government, we have some seed money from UN, and we are working with other partners as well, to continue raising funds to make sure that we continue pushing this agenda.
Yeah. So the other issue relates to the issue of the junglers. You know, prior to the testimony of some of the junglers, probably all of them, the TRC initially said some of them were released because they had a cooperation with they had cooperated with the TRC, of course, and the Ministry of Justice also at the time said they had cooperated with them. And some of us had reports that they may have had some kind of an immunity arrangement or so. If there was there any sort of immunity arrangement for the junglers who had testified that they would not be prosecuted, or is this still open to the decision of the special prosecutor? That's the ones who reportedly cooperated with the TRRC. And the other issue is we know there are a number of junglers who are also out of the jurisdiction. I mean, probably having Jammeh would still be a very ambitious project. But the junglers who are probably in Guinea-Bissau reportedly on customers, as you would find as Sanamanja was, or in Guinea-Conakry, are there any interests for the state to, through corporations, seek the arrest of this individual? Which probably would be much easier. Is this process ongoing, or is there any thing to this effect? And the third one, maybe just to conclude, is the issue of also some of the junglers who are in custody and some of the folks who have returned. There were concerns that some of them had illness, some of them were not properly taken care of. And you know, if they die, you are going to have a big trouble, because some of these people are all you have. I mean, they may be perceived criminals, but they are also human beings. I don't know if you have any arrangement to sort of take care of these individuals, probably medical help and other forms of, yeah, thank you.
Okay, on amnesty, or immunity as we refer to it, during my time I have not got any immunity or amnesty arrangement with any jungler, and I don't think it happened before me. We decided to delay that. We are not missing the fact that some of them have been recommended by TRRC itself, that they are best suitable as witnesses or whatever. In addition to that, while I'm in office, I instituted a consultancy to come up with a prosecution strategy for those that have been recommended to be prosecuted. The report that emanated from that created a 3-tier strategy. I know the prosecutor is not going to be bound by that, but they are just guidelines. That consultancy stated that there is a 4th category, tier 1, that definitely these people should be prosecuted. There is a 2nd category, the consultancy recommended that you can prosecute, but they can also be very good witnesses. And then there is a 3rd category, that tier, that the prosecution strategy recommended that they are best when you use them as witnesses. The junglers, they operated in such a way that to succeed in getting the big players, to succeed against them, most of them, but I'll leave that to the prosecutor to decide. I'm trying to be very careful not to go into details. But yes, you will need some of them as witnesses in order to succeed against the others. Because it's difficult to get an outsider who could be a very good witness against them because of the nature of their operations. But we were leaving that to a prosecutorial discretion because of the issue of perception. We have faced those challenges where we wanted to do certain things. You would inevitably have to use them, but they would always ask you, if I have to cooperate now, what do I get in return? And I really said to myself, no, it's just too early for me to start any amnesty arrangement with anybody. But now that the prosecutor is in office, the prosecutor will now have to decide. That will be entirely to him to decide who to prosecute, who to use as a witness, and whatever kind of plea bargain he wants to enter into. Strictly, we will entrust that, and we believe he will do an objective job of it. Yes, quite a number of them, I don't know directly, but we do get briefed and are here. I think we've even lost 1 or 2 potential witnesses or or so. Witness protection is one of the key mandates of this prosecutor. And that amount of money that I said we estimated to run his office per annum includes funding for witness protection. So we looked at his global mandate. So as soon as he assumes office this month, probably the first thing he will do, he will have to look around. Who are the people? What state are they? If I have to succeed in my prosecutions, who are the ones that I need? What is the condition of their health? Do they need immediate assistance? So those decisions will be taken by him. We didn't have, we couldn't do that at our time because of the complexity. We were very much focused on creating the institutional arrangements. And alhamdulillah, finally the institutional arrangements are getting in place slowly. So the prosecutor will deal with that. On extradition, I've answered that earlier. From the government point of view, yes, whenever the prosecutor reaches a point where he wants somebody to be extradited, to come. And from now on, those actions will start because we now have a prosecutor, he's in office. So yes, extradition processes will start, will commence. Have I left anything out? Okay. Okay.
Just on the issue of journalists, I'm Abdullah John. I'm an AP reporter. I write for Al-Kamba Time and a number of news outlets in Guinea and Senegal. So on the issue of the journalists, we know that some of them, they testified before the commission and they made it very clear that they acted at the direction of former President Jammeh. And we all know that if you don't strike a plea deal with them, you will not make a headway in the investigation. So is your ministry exploring ways to strike a plea deal with those some of the journalists?
Oh, okay. I had the opportunity to have done it, but I did not do it because it was a little bit premature. That responsibility is now entrusted to the prosecutor. As he decides who to prosecute, he will simultaneously decide who does he need as a witness. And if he thinks in order for him to succeed against the ones he wants to prosecute, he will need some of the Jongulas to be witnesses, he will take that independent decision without my influence or without government influence. So that's up to now the prosecutor to decide. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Honorable. I have no question. I just would like to want to say thank you for the press briefing on behalf of the Alliance for Victim-Led Organization, as well the victims of rights violations. I think this has been a long wait. We've been waiting for this process to happen, and oftentimes you hear people say, oh, nothing would happen with the Special Prosecutor Office, but finally we're here today to witness this important event to discuss basically the setup of this Special Prosecutor. So I would just like to say thank you, and we're looking forward to working with this prosecutor to ensure justice and accountability for victims of rights violations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. He will temporarily be housed at the Ministry of Justice until his permanent office is completed. So we have 6 minutes for the first half to finish, then we can get into the second half. Go ahead. Whether?
As a deputy, because in case of avoidable maybe like that or what. Because we don't want it to be disrupted. So there must be a deputy. And secondly, what I want to ask is that you said the appointment is 4 years and it's a renewable. Renewable, you not say the term. You say either it's 1 year or 2 years. So renewable, how many years?
Thank you. Yes, he will have, I think, a bit more than one deputy, because he will have different deputies under him. But the law requires the prosecutor to participate in the recruitment process of the rest of his senior management. So that is why we have to sequence it. So now that we have appointed him, now he will work with this independent panel to do the remaining recruitments. Those positions were also advertised and applications have been received, but they didn't proceed to interviewing and other parts of the recruitment because the law requires this prosecutor himself to play a role in the recruitment of his deputy, probably his director of investigation or admin or whatever, some of his senior management team. He has a role to play in that process. So therefore, we are waiting for him to assume office. Now that he has assumed office, then he will work, the work will continue for his deputies. But yes, to answer you straight on, he is really going to have a deputy. or more than one deputy. The period of renewal is deliberately not stated because you don't necessarily have to renew for another 4 years. If you have to, you will. It depends on what is left of the task. If what is left of the task could be done within a year, you just give 1 year extension. If it can be done in 2 years, so by that time when an evaluation is done, it will be known how much more time is needed, then it can only be extended for that period. So that is why it is clear it could be extended, but the period is left open for negotiation.
Sorry, just final clarification on some of these points. I've been following the Senamanjan trial for a while, and there seems to have been a sort of a hesitation at the beginning by the state to sort of try him. I don't know whether it's a hesitation or that's just me seeing it that way. It seems to have been the case that you probably are waiting for the special prosecutor to make that decision. Would there be a discontinuation of that trial? That's one issue, or whether or not it will just continue, because we've seen more witnesses now coming on board. And the second issue is that we know, some of these places where large crimes happened, like Sierra Leone and other places, they've resorted to lawyers from outside, international lawyers, some of them highly paid. And in the end, they do have what they call justice, but huge money was spent. Victims were still left crying. And the societies also were ripped apart. Some of us who followed the TRRC, excuse my long background sometimes, but you see Jambur when there was testimony, for example. After the testimony, the society was almost ripped apart. So judicial justice also has its own implications on coexistence. Would there be probably a suggestion of an innovative way of sort of ensuring justice on some levels where it may not necessarily be judicial justice, some levels of crime? And the third one is the issue of the recommendations, implementing recommendation of TRRC. There are some lower level crimes that may not necessarily be recommended by TRRC for either banning or prosecution. But these are still individuals who have participated in the prosecution or in the torture of their subordinates, or people who are currently working with them. I'll give you an example. In the Senamanjan trial, for example.
You see, I don't have a notebook, so if you say so much.
This is the final one.
Okay.
So I'm just giving you an example. So, for example, if you see the Senamanjan trial, for example, Tamsir Jasi testified. Probably, if you are following, you would know. Now, Tamsir was tortured by the Jungulas before a panel. And on that panel serves, for example, someone like Demba Sow. Demba Sow is the deputy IGP. Tamsir is the advisor of the IGP. You see that kind of complicated situation, sort of. So there are instances like this in government at various layers. Are there policy directives, policy suggestions that seeks to deal with issues like this?
Yes. Where did you start from? Was it the Senamanjan trial? Yes. I do not want to say much about that because it's sub judice. And I cannot disclose my prosecution strategy in that one, whether I will discontinue it or whether I will continue or whether there are more charges that the prosecutor has been left for the prosecutor to explore. But you said you've noticed hesitation on the side of the state. You are a good observer, but we have a strategy in place for that matter. That much I can say. I cannot go into the details because the trial is still going on, and I would not want to discuss something that is sub judice. But beyond that, yes, there are different forms of accountability, if I would use that word, that are in place. Not only prosecution, but you are aware of the banning of public officials from holding public office. Ida? Any other?
In this instance, he's asking about a situation where an individual isn't being recommended to be banned, an individual isn't recommended to be prosecuted, but the individual was named. And so this workplace ecosystem has been created. And whether government, we have any policy to sort of dampen those tensions that are happening in workplaces as these individuals' recommendations are not captured under either bans or prosecutions?
I know all the TRRC recommendations for people to be banned is being implemented. I know for a fact, unless you as my advisor tells me something new that I'm not aware, that we've written to all government institutions that anybody that is in public service and have been recommended by TRRC to be banned must not be on duty as they speak now. They've all been sent home. So the administrative accountability component is already on. The judicial accountability is what we are talking about here now. These are the two layers of accountability at this stage. Am I missing something still in your question, Mustafa? Yeah.
I think you're missing something. What I'm trying to say is that some of the instances TRC did recommend either ban or prosecution.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But they have characterized a situation of conflict where an individual, for example, is involved in a decision that harms party, right? And then they currently work together. Do you see what I mean? That tension is at various layers, even at the defense headquarters.
Oh, okay, no, it's all right. It's okay. You don't have to give. Now I understand what you're talking about. At the moment, your question is specific, policy. No policy in place at this moment, but this will be taken note of. At the moment, we are focused, my task that government assigned me to do is to implement recommendations specific that were accepted specifically in the white paper. So where there is no specific recommendation, but there is a need for the policy to be designed to deal with those situations, of course we will take note. But no, the policy, if needed, is not yet in place. Yeah.
Open up the questions, Honorable Minister, to anything involving...
No, I want to read another short statement before we go to the second half.
Okay, then we'll have one final question.
One more question, then we go to the second half of the press
conference. Prioritize the victim organizations.
Thank you, AG, and thank you for sharing this news. I think a lot of us have been waiting and anticipating this. I just want to acknowledge that the special prosecutor has background in sexual conflict-related violence, which I do believe is very significant for us, but also it really sends a strong signal to survivors of SGBV who we know are out there, but also that SGBV was quite widespread during the dictatorship and continues to be pervasive today. So I hope, as in your earlier statement, this isn't just about prosecuting those who are mentioned, but as a platform that will help us to better strategize to address that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you. He is very related offenses. Okay, thank you very much for your questions. Now, I'm now going to open the Ministry of Justice to questions. That's the Ministry of Justice as a whole. The Ministry of Justice comprises of different agencies that we have oversight over, but within the ministry itself too, we have different departments. We have the Department of Criminal Division. You have the DPP sitting there and his Deputy Director of Public Prosecution. Other directors couldn't fit here, but we have the Solicitor General, who is the head of administration and staff, Mr. Vincent Tomasi. You have Directorate of Public Prosecution, you have Directorate of Civil Litigation and International Law, you have the Legislative Drafting Department, you have the Registrar General's Department. That's where those of you who deal with land matters or documents that you register, that is the department that does that. You have the Company Registry that registers businesses and civil society organizations. And you have agents, you have the Curator of Interstate Estate as well within the ministry. Agencies like National Agency Against Trafficking in Persons, Alternative Dispute Resolution Secretariat, and National Agency for Legal Aid are also agencies that we have oversight over. It's a broad ministry, a big ministry with a broad mandate that we would welcome, questions regarding the job that we do. But just to trigger the discussions, probably as subsequent press briefings, I'll just look at one department and we talk about that department. That wouldn't stop you from asking about other departments if you have questions. I have decided personally today to start with the criminal division. That's why I put them up there. So I'll just read a short excerpt of their case returns for 2025, the performance of the department for 2025, and then I will just open up for questions since we don't have so much time. Now, the Ministry of Justice today presents the criminal prosecution performance of the Directorate of Public Prosecution for the period of January to December 2025. This report covers concluded matters before the High Court, magistrate courts, and appellate proceedings across a range of serious criminal offenses, including murder, rape, robbery, drug trafficking, financial crime, and trafficking in persons. In 2025, 70 cases were concluded by the department at various levels, 70. Out of that 70, 46 cases were decided on the merit. Decided on the merit means they flowed to their logical conclusion, a decision, a verdict is delivered. Those that don't reach there, sometimes these are the ones we say we are struck out for some reason, or withdrawn, or other things. But cases that flew, they flowed directly up to conclusion, a judgment and a verdict is delivered. Out of the 70 were 46. Out of these 46 cases that were decided on merit, the Department of Criminal Division secured 36 convictions out of 46. 36 of them, they reached a conviction, or if it were an appeal, they successfully defended the appeal. Because you realize that some convictions come from the magistrate court, but immediately if people appeal to the High Court, that's where the DPP steps in to defend the appeal. So convictions and successful defense, 36 out of 46. Acquittal and discharge for 2025, January to December, were 12 cases. 12 cases resulted in acquittal and discharge. In 2025, the Directorate filed 30 new indictments. Of the 70 matters that concluded in 2025, the DPP secured 36 conviction or upheld sentences representing a conviction rate of 78%. A conviction rate of 78% on all cases decided on their merits. That figure places the DPP's office among the better performing prosecution services in the sub-region. And it reflects the professional diligence of prosecutors in the ministry who handled a heavy and diverse docket throughout the year. 10 additional cases concluded through sentence variations on appeal, where appellants achieved partial reductions in custodial terms. Where these represented partial success for appellants, in every instance the original conviction recorded by the lower court were left undisturbed. The underlying guilt of the convicted person was affirmed in each of those 10 matters. The ministry regards those outcomes broadly satisfactory. Murder and manslaughter. The prosecution concluded 11 murder and manslaughter trials in 2025, 11. 8 resulted in convictions. 8 out of 11 resulted in convictions. That is 73% of murder cases we prosecuted in 2025, all resulted in convictions. Babukar Bangura and Augustine Bangura received death sentences for murder. Famara Kante received a life sentence. Amadou Sow and Mario Mendy were also convicted of murder. In 3 matters, courts returned convictions for lesser offenses of manslaughter, especially Kemo Hydra, 2 years, Boubacar Diallo and Barakel Irori, 5 years. 3 accused persons, Bala Sise, Salifu Keta, and Saliu Ba, were acquitted. The Attorney General has filed an appeal in Saliu Ba's matter, and that appeal is currently in progress. Rape and sexual offenses. The prosecution secured 5 convictions in trial in 2025. Sentences range from time served to 20 years imprisonment. Sekuba received 20 years, Hamidu Fasiru 10 years with hard labor. 2 accused persons, Bubakar Jammeh and Babu Gay, were acquitted and discharged. The ministry notes that sexual offense prosecutions require heightened investigative support, and it will continue to work with the Gambia Police Force to strengthen evidence gathering in this category. Robbery and theft. 7 convictions were secured in robbery and theft matters. These include Kemo Job, robbery, Abdulaziz Seka, robbery, Matar Nyang and Falunjai, conspiracy and robbery. These accused persons were, 3 accused persons were acquitted in this category, including Mahmoud Ba and Abdul Sisor. Financial crime, fraud, and money laundering. 3 convictions were secured in this category. Sayo Kor and co-accused received 10 years imprisonment, with an option of fine for fraudulent false accounting, money laundering, conspiracy, and stealing. Mam John Richards received 3 years for stealing by director. Wilfred Saye and Jonathan Papa Flomo were convicted on all counts of conspiracy, obtaining goods by false pretense, and purchasing forged notes. Omar Fofana was separately convicted for aggravated drug trafficking and money laundering. Drug trafficking. 2 convictions were secured in drug trafficking. Omar Fofana, aggravated drug trafficking with money laundering, was convicted and fined a fine option of $20 million. Hassan Baji was convicted for possession of cannabis for the purpose of trafficking and ordered to pay a fine. 1 accused person, Lamin Jaite, was acquitted of acting as an intermediary for drug trafficking. Trafficking in persons. The state secured a conviction of Hannah Magbojo Isaiah on 3 of 4 counts, including conspiracy to commit felony, trafficking in person, and importation of persons. The conviction represents an important milestone in Gambia's ongoing commitment to prosecuting human trafficking offenses. Appeals. The DPP successfully defended the state's position in 10 concluded appeal matters in 2025. Appeals dismissed in state's favor include Usman Mane, Sekou Wage, Sheikh Ahmadou Bah, Bruno Korea, Usman Bah, Yahya Gassama, Njaga Dabo, and Bakary Sarr. In matters where courts partially varied sentences, original convictions were affirmed in every instance. One appeal, Alpha Cisse, succeeded in full, resulting in an order to pay a fine. The ministry acknowledges this outcome and has reviewed the circumstances. Areas requiring institutional improvement. The ministry is transparent about the areas that may require some improvement. Struck out matters. 5 cases were struck out due to lack of diligent prosecution in the past 1 year. These were all appeal matters involving Lamin Kasava, Kalilu Kante, Suleiman Jallo, Aliu Jeng, and Pab Gay, each of whom had been validly convicted by magistrate courts. In each instance, convicted persons may retain the benefit of appeal that should have been raised. The DPP has been directed to review case management protocols for handling magistrate court appeals to prevent recurrence. Corruption prosecution. The State versus Amisar and 5 others, a corruption-related prosecution, was terminated on no case to answer submission. The State has filed an appeal against the ruling, and the matter is before the Court of Appeal. New indictments, like I said earlier. The DPP has filed 30 new indictments in 2025, covering offenses including robbery, economic crimes, attempted murder, rape, trafficking in persons, corruption, and murder. These matters are now before the courts and will form a significant portion of the 2026 caseload. The ministry is committed to ensuring that each of these prosecutions is thoroughly prepared and professionally conducted. The overall conviction rate of 78% on merits decisions reflect a prosecution service that wins the cases it takes to verdict. The 30 new indictments filed in 2025 demonstrates continued institutional resolve to prosecute various serious crimes. The Ministry of Justice remains committed to transparency and accountability, and we will continue to provide these kind of updates to the press. I think at this stage, since we don't have much time, you are free to ask any question regarding any department, but I placed the 2025 report, annual returns of the Directorate of Public Prosecution on the floor, but you are not stopped from asking questions on any aspect of the Ministry of Justice. Yes, please.
I have a question regarding the article of Senu Bojan. What will be the fate of the...
Take the mic.
My question
Go ahead.
Recently, Usainu Bojan and Ami Bojan were acquitted by a court of law. So I just want to know what will be the fate of those who testified against them, the witness. The other issue is regarding the capital punishment. Is Gambia still observing a moratorium on death penalty?
Where you ended, yes, there is a moratorium for death penalty. So even if death sentence is pronounced by the courts, we are not implementing death penalty. You were asking about the fate of the witnesses that testified in the Usainu Bojan case? They're free. I don't know what you want to know about them. They're witnesses, they've testified. The trial level ended. The matter is now on appeal. And on appeal usually is records. The witnesses may probably not be required to come and testify on appeal. On appeal is only a review of what happened at trial. So they are free.
Thank you. I have a question on the same thing. I want to ask, we've seen that following the acquittal and discharge of the accused party, Senu Bojan, instead of being released, he was rearrested and also detained at the Maidu prison. So a lot of people, including and institutions, including the Human Rights Commission, they consider that to be a piece of law and lawful procedure. So as the Minister of Justice, do you think that was lawful by the police?
Be released from prison and be arrested is not lawful, is regrettable, it happened. After having been formally released from the prisons, he could not have been rearrested without a further court order, which I am not aware of. So necessary interventions were done and he was released immediately the following morning.
So my second question would be, you were appointed Minister of Justice and Attorney General in 2020. And then since then, the state has lost a lot of high-profile cases that have political implications or so. And then I can count you some cases that you've lost. You've lost the case against Abdoulaye Sanya, who made an interview and he was arrested. You've lost the case against the former managing director of Gulf Petroleum, Sekou Dramé and others, high-profile case. You've also lost the case against Ousainou Bojang, and we've seen this government fail to implement certain legal policy recommend or policy initiatives. They failed to be implemented, including the draft constitution of 2020, which failed when you submitted for the second reading. You submitted the 2024 draft for second reading, it failed. So, and also the recent failure of the state to secure conviction against Ousainou Bojang, critics of this government said that was a disastrous failure to secure conviction. And with all these issues put together, and the fact that the National Assembly also cited that you should be punished because they said they accuse you of continuing some illegal processes that were done by your predecessor. So with all these things, critics said you need to resign or you'll be dismissed by the president. We know that you are not dismissed, you are here with us, but would you resign?
Thank you. I'm happy that you only choose to look at the negatives. How many positives have been achieved during the time? You are not watching up those ones and you're not counting them. Because we are even here to celebrate a very key milestone. And nobody will credit that. It takes, I'll be 6 years in office in this coming June, end of June. And within 6 years, the records are there to speak for themselves. Losing a couple of cases in court. Which justice ministry do you see in the world that wins all these cases 100%? The courts are not controlled by us. That's actually what we desired for as a democracy. The courts are supposed to be independent. They are supposed to assess evidence and reach a conclusion. But the process is an ongoing thing. We suffered a defeat. Yes, the Ousainou one you are saying, the judge decided to assess the evidence and reach his own conclusion and arrive at a verdict of acquittal. But acquittal does not equate to he did not do it. I don't mean Ousainou, I mean the meaning of acquittal. That's what I'm saying. When somebody is acquitted, it's different from saying that the accused did not do it. Acquittal simply means the court reached a verdict that evidence is not sufficient enough to convict. This is completely different from whether the suspect did the offense or not. And I think you, the media, need to help people to understand these differences. So, but just because a couple of cases are lost in court, no, I am hired to even deal with those challenges, to find out why are cases being lost. How do we resolve them? How do we solve those problems to make sure we lost as few cases as possible? I am a minister, I'm serving at the pleasure of the president. If something arises that I think I could no longer take this, I would resign. I don't need somebody to advise me to resign. But until the president, at whose pleasure I am serving, decides to tell me, I think we need to part now, I am here, and I don't get intimidated to do my job.
So, failure of this case is not
Sorry.
I've answered your question. Let's take another question. But you have had a turn. Allow somebody else to have a turn. Unless you want a turn, you can ask for your turn, another turn again, and ask a further question.
Honorable Minister, I was following, and I was waiting for the gentleman, our dear brother, to highlight those cases that we have lost. And you highlighted 3. But out of these 3, 2 of them are still ongoing because we have appealed against them. So as far as we're concerned, they have not yet declared that they can conclude. The legal process is still on. We cannot say that we have lost those cases because we are still contesting.
Thank you. Has made to you a 2025 conviction rate of 78%. You call that a bad performance?
No, I'm not talking about the 2025. I'm talking about your appointment, you as Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Republic of the Gambia, and the government being found wanting. I can cite you cases where outside was found wanting. The government was found wanting, violating the Constitution on numerous occasions under your leadership.
So,
I can cite you.
No, hold on.
The salaries of the key Chief Justice and judges was increased by the President without the approval of the National Assembly, and you came to Parliament and you admitted that. To people outside, that is a failure of legal process.
Hold on.
Government failed to submit the
can we exercise some decorum? You've asked the question. You cannot determine.
You will have to take the answer. I don't control your question, but you don't control my answer. I think that should be the relationship. So let's take another question.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Patience Sloan. So back in 2022, I did an article on the government's preferred option to prosecute those that bear the most responsibilities. And then when I asked who are those that bear the most responsibilities, I was told that the names will be out once the special prosecutor is identified. Now that we have that out of the way, when will the public get the names of those who bear the most responsibilities on the Yahya Jammeh?
So I don't work of the prosecutor. Like I said, 69 names are recommended, and the prosecutor will study them and will inform the public those that he thinks bears the greatest responsibility and want to go after them.
My name is London Cisse, Point newspaper again. Regarding rape cases, I have key interest in this area, and I've been following. Recently, I published an article on one of the rape victims. This girl was raped at the age of 12, and she was confirmed pregnant at the age of 13. But the perpetrator is missing. Justice Jayden struck out the case because the perpetrator is missing. The person who bailed the perpetrator is also missing. Yes, I don't know whether you are aware of it, but I'm sure the DPP would. Yes. And the perpetrator's name is Bachsamba Jallow. I know the DPP must have been aware of this. I want to know how far is your ministry going to take to ensure that Bachsamba Jallow is brought to book? And my other question is, how well is your ministry working with the police? Because based on my observation, most of these rape cases are lost not because of your staff. I'm not promoting them, not because of them, but because of the bad investigation that was done by the police. How well is your ministry working with the police to ensure that proper investigation is done, to ensure that perpetrators of this heinous crime are not, escaped, just like Bachsamba Jallow is now on the run. In fact, even the ID card that was issued to bail Bachsamba Jallow is not biometric, but the other one, when I was a toddler, that kind of ID card was the one used, and Bachsamba Jallow was only bailed for $10,000. And now he is on the run, and the victim is there bearing the pain. What is your ministry doing in order to ensure that Bachsamba Jallow is brought to the book and make sure justice is served for the victim? Thank you.
Bachsamba Jallow, I have not been briefed on it, like I said. Probably not all these things come to my table, but I'm sure DPP may be aware. But I'll just respond to you from the facts that you have said. We take all SGBV cases very seriously. And the fact that you say the perpetrator is nowhere to be found, the sorties are nowhere to be found, that sounds a bit of a challenge. Because normally when a perpetrator is not found, we cannot find the perpetrator, we go after the sorties. So if the sorties themselves are nowhere to be found, that's a difficult one. So probably those kind of situations we notify the police, and then because they do the manhunt. So they should have to continue to do the manhunt until this suspect can be apprehended and then will be made available to us for prosecution. But how we work with the police, SGBV cases, I mentioned it in my statement, they require some technicality in investigating them. Police have developed a lot of capacity in it, but there can always be room for more capacity building. For the ministry, we have come up with an SGBV unit. So So we have a SGB desk officer. So they liaise with the police. They also have gender or SGBV unit. So these two units work very, very, very closely. And we recognize the gaps. So there is a lot of collaboration in that area. Hotlines have been created for victims and survivors to call and response to improve on response time, but also guidelines for investigations, how to make sure that critical evidence are properly preserved so that they can be presented in court. So a lot is being done, but we know we need to do more. So we are committed to that. But I'm happy you choose that area as area of interest. We are equally very keen about the SGBV matters.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Alasandra from Store Alasan TV. Yeah, my question goes to Ousseynou Bojang cases. We saw that the government spokesperson made public statement immediately after the incident before the police concluded their investigations. And some journalists were even called for questioning regarding the matter. What is the difference between an ordinary citizen and public authorities when it comes from making a statement on ongoing investigation under our laws? Now that Ousseynou Bojang, the other question, now that Ousseynou Bojang has been acquitted with, will the same standard apply, and will the spokesperson be called for questioning to clarify his earlier statement? Also, what action will be taken regarding Mama Jabi, whose allegation led to Ousseynou Bojang's arrest in Casamance, now that a spokesperson has been?
So on Ousseynou, I think you will agree with me, we should all be careful how much we say about the case, because appeal has been filed. It means the matter is sub judice, it's still before the court, and it is proceeding. So we will not be able to say much about it. And the names that you mentioned, I believe, have testified in that case. So the government spokesperson was called upon, he testified in the case, so he was a witness. So everything he said is also part of the records of the court as a witness. So I wouldn't want to comment on that, but what I can say is a public officer making a statement after an event is not in itself out of the ordinary. This is normal. I think is what is said is what we should look at. What did that particular public officer say with respect to the issue? But naturally, when an incident like that happens, you will expect government officials, public officers to come and address the public. So the question is not whether a public officer should address the public when an incident happens. Is probably how do we do it is what we will need to look at. But I cannot comment on his specific statements because he's a witness before the court and the matter is on appeal.
It's already 2 p.m. I think at this stage.
For raising this press briefing, and we look forward to another meeting again. Thank you.
Some people think the world is their bin, but the environment always gives back what we throw away. Let's break the cycle. Encourage your family and friends. Let's make cleanliness our habit, not a special occasion. Setal Sunureo. Let's keep Gambia clean, beautiful and healthy. Because this land is ours, and together we can protect it.